Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the CESC webinar number 19. Today's webinar is on the potential of BIM for measuring and enhancing productivity in the construction industry. My name is Anas Batao. I'm the director of the Center for Excellence Smart Construction, and I'm joined today by an esteemed panel members that we've really looked forward to working with for some time. We'll be joined today by our moderator, Dr. Mohammed Qasim. He's a professor of digital construction management at Newcastle University, joined by a panel, Tamer Al-Gohari. He's the Digital Innovation Manager at ASGC, one of our partners within the Center of Excellence, joined by another panelist from another partner, which is JLL, Prakash Singhani, Director and Head of Digital Delivery. And last but not least is panelist Mohammed Barghash, Asset Management Practice Lead Middle East at McDonald's. So today we're very proud to have a member from each of our partners. Discussion, as I said, it's about one of the topics that we've covered a few times, which is BIM, and this time we dig in a little bit deeper on the the measurements and enhancement of productivity. This came out of a request from previous discussions that we've had, and hopefully we can cover some of the points that's been highlighted previously by the audience. Moving on, I'll just give you a quick introduction about the center. So along with our partners, Jacobs, McDonald, ASGC, Aldar, Polypipe, and JLL, we're very proud to take you through today the workshop and some of the topics that we're going to be discussing. A bit of, as well as obviously a number of our affiliates. A bit of background about the Center for Excellence Smart Construction. The center is built on what we call the triple helix approach, and therefore you'll find in all our webinars a combination between and discussions in between government, industry, and academia on certain topics, such as today. We've had a number of topics that we've been discussing, and today we take the same structure. First of all, we'll go through an introduction of the webinar by Professor Mohammed, who I'll hand over to in a minute. And then we'll followed by a presentation from Tamer Al-Gohari on the topic of discussion. And then we will have an open discussion with the panelists, moderated by Professor Mohammed. And then after that, as always, we would welcome questions and answer. Without further ado, I'll just hand over to Professor Mohammed. All over to you.
Thank you, Anas, and welcome everyone to this webinar and the panel discussion. So today, as Anas highlighted, we are discussing really a very important topic on productivity and the impact of BIM on productivity within the construction sector. This topic has really been, for a long time, a topic of extensive debate within the construction industry, both in academia but also in research. As you know, there are many government departments and public sector authorities in many countries who developed strategies for BIM adoption based on the premise that BIM improve productivity, help us to realize saving and achieve benefits and better value for money for the public sector and taxpayers. However, as we know, construction projects are really complex. They involve many disciplines, and today we have, as you will see, people from different organizations. So they involve architects, engineers, contractors, owners, and facility managers. These stakeholders all together form an enterprise in which really the realization of benefits would happen. So realizing benefits in such a complex enterprise is a complex activity that requires clear requirement, that requires an orchestrated production and exchange of information, quality assurance, and you name it. It's also affected by the type of project delivery method we adopt in our project. You know, design and build, design, bid, and build. And it's also affected by the digital capability and maturity of participants. So how we can realize benefits from using BIM in this complex environment is a challenging topic. So today we have the three experts introduced by Anas. It would be a pleasure to discuss with them this very important topic. But before we move on to the panel discussion, we have a presentation on 4D and benefit of 4D across the life cycle. I would like to give now the floor to our presenter, Tamer. Tamer, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Muhammad, for the introduction. Thank you, Anas, and thanks for Center of Excellence for having me here today. Let me share my screen. So, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right. So, our topic today is going to be about the benefits of BIM and how we could relate this to the project productivity. So my topic today is going to be 4D planning and innovation in project management. Today we're going to discuss three main topics, the BIM 4D modeling and information workflow. Then we'll go for the 4D BIM roadmap through the project life cycle. So how we could implement the BIM, the 4D through the project life cycle. Then we'll have some ideas about how we could integrate the 4D and get the benefits of integration the 4D with other technology. So starting with the first topic about the 4D information workflow. BIM have been there in the market for a very long time. And there's so many definitions and there's so many people having different ideas about how we could define them, and there's so many references. So for me, BIM is a process that involves the generation and integration of digital representation. So what do you mean by digital representation? Digital representation, it's the 3D model itself. 3D model itself includes physical and functional characteristics. What do you mean by physical? Physical, it's, for example, the length, the volume of any element of the 3D model. And the functional characteristics are the material, for example, the other documents related to that element. For me, BIM, it's all about integration. It's how we are integrating the different stakeholders in a single process. BIM is not a technology, BIM is not a software, BIM is a process of integration. So we have different dimensions for BIM depending on the standard that you are following. So we are starting from the 3D model. Why we call it 3D model? Because it has three different dimensions, X, Y, and Z. When we add the time as a new dimension and we link each task in the schedule with the corresponding element in the 3D model, this is the 4D, where we create an animation for the project. After that, when we link the 4D model with our finance, information, procurement, estimation, budget, and cost, this is the 5D. 6D is the sustainability. When we link the 5D model with all the sustainability information that we have, 7D when we create the facility management. So those are the different dimensions of them. Today we'll focus on the 4D modeling. So what do you mean by 4D modeling? 4D modeling is simulating the planning sequence of construction activities and space requirement on a building site. Forget this definition. We can define the 4D just by 5 words: visualization of construction schedule. That's it. So if you have whatever you have, like a P6 schedule, MS project, whatever kind of schedule you have, when you visualize it, this is the 4D. When you link the task in the schedule, for example, the foundation with the corresponding element of 3D model, this is the 4D. So the typical workflow, how could we create a 4D model? So we can divide this into 3 different stages. Stage number 1, where the 3D modeling team create the 3D modeling schedule, the 3D model, and the planning team create the schedule. The role of the 4D engineer or 4D specialist in this stage is to make sure that the level of detail of the BIM model is matching the WBS level of detail, as we'll see in the next slide. Stage number 2, the 4D engineer receive the 3D model from the modeling team and receive the schedule from the planning team, and he start to link between each task in the schedule with the corresponding element in the 3D model. So we start from the foundation, ground floor verticals, etc. This link might be manual, so you pick the task, then the element, and create the connection, or it might be automated. So it depends on the software that you are using. Stage number 3, when we export the report of the 4D, either it's a PDF report or a video. So those are the main 3 stages of creating a 4D model. This is one of my favorite charts. So as you can see in this chart, we have the same perspective, but from 2 different points of view. So as a BIM, professionals, we have what we call the LOD. The LOD is representing the level of detail and information that you have in your model. We have the same concept from the planning perspective, which we call the WBS. So as a 4D specialist, you need to have the level of experience and understanding both the BIM, the 3D model, LOD, and the planning WBS of the schedule, and to make sure that you are matching the same exact level. So this chart for the people who are always against the BIM and the BIM 4D. So that's our first part of the presentation. Let's go to the next topic of how we could implement this and what's the benefit of the 4D during the project lifecycle. So I would like to divide the project lifecycle into 5 different stages. Create stage, stage number 1, stage number 2, the baseline stage, stage number 3, optimize, stage number 4, the construction, then the final stage, which is the lesson learned. Starting in stage number 2, stage number 1. In stage number 1, let's imagine that we are in the tender stage. We have a very high level information about the project, and we have a very high LOD of the 3D model. We have a very high level of the schedule. In this stage, we create a very simple animation that could represent the proposed construction methodology. So what are the top benefits that are expected in this stage? The first thing is schedule validation. Let me tell you that 90% when we simulate the tender schedule in this stage, we find that there is a mistake, or the schedule is not representing the proposed construction methodology. In this stage, we are supporting the planning and assessment and also 3D model validation. So when you validate the schedule in this stage, it's directly validating the productivity, all the productivity, because as a planner, you have some assumptions in the productivity during the tender, right? That's how you get the duration of the task. With a 4D simulation, you are validating the assumption of the productivity that you are putting either for your human resource, equipment, etc. And here's an example of how we have a very high level of the 4D. As you can see, we are dividing the project into just 4 simple parts, and we are simulating 5 main activities of each part. Stage number 2, in the project life cycle, the baseline stage, you awarded the project. So in this stage, we are about to start the construction. With a 4D, you can validate all the logistics plan that you have proposed, the construction methodology, simulation, zone, and move management. So let me show you an example. As you can see here, this is a 4D simulation and the baseline. We didn't start the project yet. We're just simulating the proposed baseline schedule. So again, we are validating all the productivity rates that we are assuming to be used in this schedule. As you can see here on the right side, we are using what we call the loading bar techniques. Why do we need this? Because we have this frequent question of the people in the site. Okay, if the 4D is just linking between the schedule and the graphical information that you have in the 3D model, what about the tasks that doesn't have a graphical representation? For example, all the engineering tasks in the schedule, procurement tasks, etc. They're still very important tasks to be tracked, right? So we are using loading bar to represent the progress of those tasks. And stage number 3, the optimize stage. So the 4D is a very useful tool to be used to optimize to optimize and reduce the schedule. This is the first thing. The second thing, also it could be used in value engineering. Also, we can create unlimited number of crane and safety analysis, and every analysis and simulation that we create could be used to increase the productivity and reduce the mistakes. So here's an example of using the 4D. So in this example, we have simulated the crane movement right? So the logistics team got a better understanding about where they should use or locate the material during the construction. So this will reduce the double handling time between the cranes. That's how we are increasing the productivity of the cranes. Another example here where we provide complete logistics. So we are making sure, for example, I'm sorry because I don't have time, so I'm just trying to just stop the videos wherever I feel that it's going to be like really related to the productivity and that. So in this example, we are simulating the logistics of this project with a 4D animation and or we can call it simulation. We are simulating the location from where we are going to pump the concrete for the raft. That's how we are creating a different kind of what-if scenarios to increase the efficiency and the productivity for the concrete customer. At the end, stage number 4, construction stage. It's very useful. It's the core of the 4D where you create unlimited number of comparison between the baseline and the update. So on the left side, we have the baseline 4D simulation that we have created at the beginning of the project during the baseline stage. On the right side, we have the update. Okay, so the updated schedule, this is the information that coming from the site. This is the actual update, right? So you can create this kind of comparative 4D simulation where you can see where the areas where you are behind or ahead the schedule. Also from the loading bars here, as you can see, the green bar representing the baseline, the red bar are representing the actual progress. So you can see that we are behind the schedule in almost all the activities, which is normal in construction, but it's not something good. With a 4D simulation, you can predict where you are behind the schedule, and also you could understand if you have any deficiency in the productivity, then you will solve it. So you will not end up by paying for any liquidated damage or even having a lot of negative float in your critical path. So the lesson learned, which is stage number 5 during the project life cycle, at the end of the project, you will have a huge number of digital documentation of the project, which will help in facility management in case you want to, that they are going to hand it over to your client. So in the future, they will have a better understanding of how this project has been done, and also it will be very useful for facility management. The last topic for today, how we could integrate the 4D, the BIM, with the other technologies. I'm going to give you a very quick 2 examples. The first thing is integrating the 4D with the mixed reality, and the integration between the 4D with reality capture. Starting with the mixed reality, what do we mean by mixed reality? Mixed reality could be subclassed into 2 different technologies, the VR and the AR. VR, when you replace the real world, the real environment with a virtual environment. This is virtual reality. But when you augment the digital model with the real world, this is augmented reality. So, as an example here for virtual reality, where you can take, as you can see, either you use the headset, the VR headset. This is very useful to create a non-physical, or let's call it a digital mock-up. So instead of building the whole mock-up of the project, or for example of the villa, you can just do it very easy with the VR technique. In terms of the mobile virtual reality, it's very powerful, where you can take your 4D model to the site, and in the site just pick up the elements, update the progress of the specific zone, element, etc. Go back to the office, link your tablet to the Primavera B6, and automatically it will update the schedule. This is BIM, integrating with mixed reality. Imagine if you have any kind of technology that capture the labor location, the equipment location, right? And you are integrating this with the captured progress with the 4D from the site, then you will have a very good detailed analysis about the crew performance in the site, the equipment performance, and that's how we are going to analyze our productivity, resource productivity in the site, and also we have a better plans of how we could enhance the productivity by linking the information coming from them with the information coming from the resource trackers. Also, this could be done with augmented reality and then. The second integration here between the 4D and reality capture. So we have three main sources of reality capture: drones, time-lapse, 360, and 360 cameras. I'll show here a quick example of how we are integrating them with our drones. So we have replaced the actual progress or the actual 4D simulation with the actual footage coming from the drone. And we are comparing it to the baseline 4D. So if you pause the video, and today is 21st of May 2017, you can see that, for example, for this core wall, we are behind the schedule, but for the other core wall, we are ahead. Also, the first floor of the left side zone and the right side zone, we are ahead the schedule. That's how we are using the BIM to analyze our current productivity. And also, you can create my timer. So I just need one more minutes. So that's how we are getting the benefits of the 4D of the BIM. And we're integrating this all together. Imagine if you are implementing the 5D as well. This will be reflected in your monthly and weekly cost reports and budget. I will give you, this is our last example. The 360. Okay, so if we're using one of the, this is the 360. So we are creating like Google Maps, and we're doing this every 2 weeks, for example, where you can split the screen and you can compare between last week, as you can see on the left side is like in July, and the 362 on the right side from June. So you can even compare the progress using two different 360 captures, and also you can replace this and compare it with the exported 4D model in a certain day. So you can compare the model exported from the 4D software at a certain date to the real footage from the site. So and time-lapse also is kind of the reality captures tools that we are using. At the end, the benefits of the BIM in relation to the productivity are unlimited. You just need to have a proper POC and blueprint before you start any implementation. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tamer, for the very useful and clear presentation. And we are actually ahead of time, 5 minutes ahead of time. I'll take the opportunity to just ask a couple of questions coming from the audience about your presentation, Tamer. I'm not sure if you can read it in the chat. So the first question from Bharat, he says, I create schedule with task ID, and I create a shared parameter named task ID in Revit for 3D model. After that, I do automatic matching in Synchro Pro. Is that the right process?
It's the right process, yes. But me personally, I don't prefer to use the auto matching at all, because you will put a lot of effort in terms of there's any change in the schedule or the 3D model, right? So I always prefer, my approach is to do it manually. Yes, I might do this in a very high level, but if I have no time that I want to do something very quickly, but in terms of doing this like to be the standard approach or standard, let's say, process, I don't agree, especially that not all the time the model that you receive from the modeling team is matching the proposed construction methodology from the planner. For example, the modeling team, they are going to model the raft of the project as a single element, but the planning team, they are dividing this as per the construction joints, right? So you will need to do it in Synchro, for example, to subdivide the 3D model. In this case, you will use the parameters in the Revit.
Okay, thank you very much. We have another question from Roy. How effective is the drone integration with BIM? And how much the drone can capture the required details?
All right, so how effective? It's very effective as a short answer, because, as you said, the applications are unlimited. Like there is no, first of all, in technology, there is no like right and wrong, right? So the benefits are unlimited, but for me, I would say that with a drone, you can capture the exterior progress of the site. You can use, you can create 3D, let's say, auto scanning for the site, and also you can scan the topography of the earth, where it would help you to create the cut and fill reports, etc. So it's very helpful. What's the second question?
No, that was the second question. Just in relation to that drone integration, the image you showed, where you showed like a drone actual and the 4D plant on side by side, that comparison, is it made manual or is it automatic superimposing? Manual.
Yeah,
okay.
It's all manual. I have exported the 4D model with the same camera angle, the way that I have shooted the site with the drone. I just put them side by side using some video editing software. That's all.
Yeah, there is some comment here. Synchro Pro 4D is the only software, or do we have other software in the market we use?
Right, let me answer this question. The first thing that you have to understand the concept of the 4D, right? So this is very important for me when the people need to understand and to have the knowledge of the 4D as a concept. After that, there is unlimited number of softwares. I believe that there is more than 10 available 4D software in the market. The question is how to choose the 4D software, right? So the first thing that you need to do is to you need to know exactly what you want to achieve. This is very important. Once you know what you want to achieve, then you can find and match the software that you will require, because there's different software. Every software has its own pros and cons. So the important question, what do you want to achieve? But there is Synchro, there is Fuso, there is Naviswork. But if you ask me what's different between Naviswork and Synchro, I would say that Naviswork, for example, is a sequence software where you just can create a sequence. But Synchro will give you more construction simulation, where you can represent even the construction methodology by representing the animation of the equipment, the animation even of casting the concrete.
That's great. Thank you very much, Tamer. We'll move on to our second part of this webinar. So in the second part, I'll be asking our esteemed panelists questions for the first 15 minutes. Then this will be followed by question directly from the audience for 10 minutes, and then we wrap up. So I will start with a question to the panel. We have, as I said earlier, we have 3 experts representing different sectors. We have Tamer representing a wide range of residential, commercial, industrial projects. We have Prakash representing major residential projects and real estate. And finally, we have Mo representing asset management. So they all have really a solid track record in managing projects using BIM. And as I said earlier, BIM benefits and productivity changes from the perspective of one industry type and one project stakeholder from one to another. So I would like to start our question to the panel by understanding their own perspective on productivity and benefit. So I would like to ask, I will start first with Tamer, and then move to Prakash and then to Mo. So Tamer, what productivity means to your organization, and what BIM benefits means to your organization?
I would say that productivity, it's very important. It's the main pillar that we have in our project, because based on the productivity, we assign the resources and also we calculate the durations based on our productivity rate. So it's very important to track our labor productivity, equipment productivity, but the most important part is to get an actual numbers representing the actual productivity in the site. So that's why we are always like investigating, and we're trying to partnership with other technologies, with software provider in the market that could help us in this. So BIM is very important, even if it's not mandated by, if we got a project that the BIM is not mandated by the client, we implement them. because we really believe in the benefits of the BIM that we're going to get.
Thank you very much, Tamer. I will ask the same question to Prakash.
Yeah, so thanks for inviting me to this. So in terms of productivity, what productivity means to us. So we work across a slightly different project lifecycle than what Tamer mentions. We work across a real estate lifecycle, and that starts off with early stage planning and moves all the way through to operating the asset and potentially selling the asset. So productivity for us during the construction is very similar to what Tamer mentioned, where we're trying to ensure that the projects that we're managing and looking after on behalf of our clients are moving at the right pace, at the pace that we plan to, and that any obstacles that come in the way are managed and mitigated. But more importantly, we're also looking at how, when the asset is delivered, how you can maintain and operate that asset in the most productive way possible. And that productivity is now slowly also starting to encapsulate sustainability, making sure that the asset itself is productive in a sustainable manner, and we're utilizing BIM in a number of ways to help ensure we do that. So Tamer showed how 4D is being utilized to help manage the construction process, but we can also use 4D models to work out how things are going to be maintained. So simple things like orientation of equipment, making sure that you can get access to them to maintain them, placement of equipment, making sure that you don't constantly have to set up ladders to be able to go and access things, to be able to maintain and fix things. So some of these things can be planned out at a very early stage, either during the design or during the construction, utilizing the 4D models.
Thank you very much, Prakash. Mo, what's your perspective on productivity and benefit in asset management?
Thank you all. Thanks for having me. So I think in thinking about it from an asset management perspective, I kind of combine the previous approaches and kind of extend them a little bit, because what I'm thinking about when I think about asset management and BIM, I'm thinking about the concept of cradle to grave or dust to lust. So for me as an asset manager, when I start thinking about managing and owning an asset, I need to think about from the whole life cycle, how much this asset going to cost me through the whole life cycle of it, from the day I'm acquiring it or planning to acquire it till the day I'm disposing of the asset. So this is the first dimension. The second dimension now with the huge mandate you could see in the market around ESG and a triple bottom line linkage, it definitely in the previous stages when you choose material A over material B for either the cost perspective or the durability perspective, you're compromising another dimension. So and now the requirement for what productivity means and what the best outcome from BIM start becoming more and more a broader concept that goes through the whole project implementation, the whole project execution, then the asset information handover, and how rich or not rich these information that you handed over from a construction entity operator and maintainer. And then how can you manage the asset in order to deliver the right value that you're asking about, but at the same time meet your ESG, for example, requirement, your regulatory requirement, and so forth. So this is how I see productivity and value that you can extract from BIM for me.
Thank you very much, Mo. I'll move on to our next question for Tamer. And this is really, as well, I came across this issue a lot and also in academia and research. Often BIM, for a long time, really, organization has been talking about return on investment, cost-benefit analysis, payback period, as if BIM is a piece of equipment on a shop floor.
Mm-hmm.
So based on your experience, Tamer, in the Gulf area, have the industry moved from this position? And if it did, what has it taken to achieve this shift?
From my point of view, from the things that I see every day, I think they didn't move yet. And there's a gap between even let's say, some of the clients and the other clients. So there's so many reasons, and the challenge is why do we have, and challenge is why we have this. So from my point of view, no, not yet. And the main challenge that is, from my point of view, why we are still struggling this, the lack of knowledge. So the people, the decision makers, they don't really understand the benefits of them. So I don't think we moved from this point. We're still struggling.
Interesting. So based on this, really, I would build my question to Prakash. So the real estate, to my knowledge, at least here in the UK, hasn't been among the early adopters of BIM. So building on what Tamer said, there is like still some, not resistance, some ignorance of the benefits that BIM can bring within the industry. What about the real estate industry? What are the peculiarities of BIM adoption in that sector? How you would describe the state of BIM within the real estate?
So first of all, I would disagree with what Tamer was saying on the types of projects and the scale of projects that I've worked on, and I've been in the Middle East region for the last 9 years. I've seen a huge evolution of attitudes towards BIM. Where when I first started, it was all about what's the ROI? When am I going to get a return on this investment that I'm making in terms of equipment and training people? Now we don't have that conversations. BIM is being included as part of our scopes. We're pricing it in at the very early stages when we're doing our tenders. We're now increasingly seeing clients becoming very mature, developing their own information requirement standards, maybe not consistently from client to client, but where clients have got multiple programs and projects that they're going to be producing under an umbrella. We're seeing very sophisticated information requirements and employer requirements being produced. So I think there's probably a disparity between the scale of projects. Perhaps Tamer is referring to some slightly smaller scale projects, but I think Tamer, you would agree as well that the larger scale projects have all moved towards a BIM environment. If I look at the projects that I'm currently working on, there's not a single one that we don't do BIM on. So 100% of the projects that I'm currently working on have got BIM mandated, and we're deploying it. And so if you talk about it from a real estate perspective, so we're looking at building asset classes such as malls and residential and hospitality. I think BIM is advancing really, really well. So we're no longer having conversations about whether there is a benefit to using BIM or not. It's now a conversation about how we can get the most out of this investment. So what can we do to make sure that we're making decisions more effectively? We're trying to reduce the risks to our program, reduce the risks to cost overruns, and then plugging it in to other technologies. And Tamer made some examples of that in terms of AR, VR, reality capture, and then the utilization of artificial intelligence, machine learning. So we're actually and again, I caveat on the scale of projects that I'm currently working on, we've gone beyond the conversations about whether BIM is good or not. It's all about how we can get the most out of BIM.
Interesting. I think we are meant to have disagreements. This is not a problem. Tamer, my own experience in the Gulf it's in between. It's not about whether we should implement, but when it comes to implementation, I felt there aren't well-established information management standard, and people who come from abroad to work in the Gulf, whether they're Australian, British, Americans, they bring back their own standards, and there's so much proliferation of standard, and there isn't a well-developed standard based approach to information management. But I'll let Tamer react before I go to Mo. I'll let Tamer react to your comment. Do you have any reaction, Tamer, or?
Yeah, for sure. I agree with Prakash that if we compare what we have right now to 5 years ago, there is an increase of the owner requirements, understanding, knowledge in BIM. I would say that because I'm coming from contractor. Let me tell you that we have received 2 tenders last month and a few months ago. The projects are more than $200 million, and they don't have even a BIM requirement. So, and we decided as a company, as I said before, to proceed and to implement them by our own, even it's not required by the client. So this is the gap that I'm talking about. Even in UK, I know that UK is one of the leading, and they already 2 years ago mandated the level 2 BIM. But I know that there's some projects that BIM is not part of the implementation of the project.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
so
go
from
ahead,
my
go
point of so from my point of view, the return on investment in BIM, the people, or let's say some clients, they really don't see the benefits till today for so many reasons and challenges. Yes, in the market, but it's everywhere.
Yeah, I think adoption is complex, and you know, I would describe it as evolutionary. It's not revolutionary, so it takes time. So perhaps, you know, what Prakash perceived is true, and what you are experiencing, Tamer, is true. So I'll move on to Mo. Mo, I think, is best to describe, you know, sitting on the receiving side. Not, I would say, receiving side, not exactly, but on from the asset management perspective, can maybe give us a good portray best the maturity of adoption. So you in your you mentioned earlier in your intervention, it's really complex where you set your position in projects. There is a complex relationship between OPEX and CAPEX, and based on your experience in asset management across the region, how do you judge adoption, and how do you really, as an asset manager, you work with the supply chain to balance this APEX, CAPEX situation?
Yeah, so I think first of all, I'll start with the both point that I heard from Prakash and Tamer are like both sound accurate as a standalone point. And I think I might be a little bit lucky being a consultant that I can see the both sides of mature client or a client still in the journey. So when Prakash was describing, a lot of the projects that he's working on are fully detailed with BIM requirement, asset information requirement, asset motor requirement. So forth, I'll be like, absolutely, yes, that is definitely the case. And I've done work with clients similar like that they have everything clear and defined, right? And also when Tamer describes that he got the $200 million a project in the region that did not have maybe even asset information requirement, I'll be like, absolutely right. Like, you know, and this is kind of like the lead me to answer your question, which is the level of asset management maturity from an asset management perspective is huge and enormous in the region. So you could sit down with a client who are talking about the basic concept of what management of the asset or maintaining the asset, right? At the same time, you could be sitting down at the end of the day with a client discussing and detailing how the digital twin of their asset could look like and feels like, which is, it's really interesting. Again, going back to the concept of like, a lot of expats come to the region, bring their own expertise, bring their own standard, the way how do they do things, and then we're trying to adopt that. There is an early adopter, there's an easy adopter, and so forth. And you know, for me, BIM is not a question about is it beneficial or not beneficial. It's a tool. It's you know, like the concept is a tool, which is it's the way forward. And if I compare to what we're doing in the Middle East, if what we've been doing in Australia, for example, 4 or 5 years ago, where a lot of the innovation or a lot of the mandate of using BIM came from the industry, came from the contractors. The contractors realized the benefit of using BIM for their own, especially when they talk about contractors and subcontractors and so forth. So that creating that burning platform in the market to for the government agencies to start and becoming more and more adopter. So that's where you see a lot of, for example, the Victorian government creating the Victorian Digital Twin or the Victorian BIM standards or digital engineering. And there's a lot of working group within the government agency to try to create that understanding. And now, you know, 3 years in or 40 years in, you could see that the dynamic in the market changed in Australia. For example, you get a new contract or you get a new job and the job will have BIM requirement already embedded in it. And this is kind of like what we've been working with our client in the region, trying to create that similar level of maturity. But again, the client that they started the journey, you will have them already ready. And the client is on the journey, they're still catching up. Now, how that links into the COBEX and ABEX, which is the second part of your question, that they're competing in the Middle East regarding, do I buy it cheap now or do I buy it expensive and hope for the best in the life cycle of the asset, is still paramount. And some of these things like kind of being addressed through the business case stage or through the the submission or clarification stage and so forth, to trying to tease out, well, how much this asset going to cost me in the future. However, if the assessment methodology on procuring an asset will be based on the capex that you're spending today, then it's an obvious outcome, right? So buy whatever is cheap today and replace everything after 5 years. But if the question changes from evaluating the asset for the capex side into the whole of life cycle, which is, for example, what you see through PPPs, for right, like, which is that shift in, you're building the asset, you're going to maintain it and operate it for a long period of time. It's going to stuck with you for 25 years. So you better start thinking about these things. So when we start shifting the thinking from what am I buying now into what I'm buying the whole life of the asset, you could start seeing that the companies procuring asset that they can manage and operate for a longer period of time, and instead of just buy it today and let's worry about it tomorrow, which is a lot of the, I think in the market now, asset management is one of the hottest topics to talk about. And it's just an outcome of the assets that we bought 10, 20, 30 years ago. Now they start aging, and these assets, we still need to extract the best value out of them. You can't demolish them and build a new one. So you better do something. And what to do? Manage the asset better. This is how I see it from my perspective.
Thank you very much, Mo. Thank you very much, Mo. Very interesting. I think we'll move now to Q&A with the audience. I see some hands up, but I don't see any question in the Q&A channel. Any question from our audience? I don't seem to have any question from the audience. So should we? I guess we can continue our discussion until for one more question until we receive, or if we receive some question. So I think I'm interested as well in the prospect of not really beyond BIM. It's a silly term, but Tamer showed some AR, VR technology. In terms of AR rather than VR and AR, in terms of AI, artificial intelligence, are you experiencing in the Gulf some application at any stage in the project lifecycle? Very likely you might have some at the asset management, but during the construction phase or design phase, are you experiencing any AI applications in real projects?
Yep. So we're seeing the use of generative design coming in, and so generatively designing elements which are then represented in 3D and end up being parts of BIM models to help. We're at the very early stages, so we're seeing. I've worked on projects and working with some startups that are utilizing generative design to create what we call highest and best use studies, which then evolve into master plans. I've also seen generative design being utilized to help with the drawing production. So utilizing very, very rudimentary, you can barely call it artificial intelligence, but it's still parametric design, let's say, or algorithmic design to then produce the actual design documentation. So it flows through all the way to producing 2D drawings, which are then used to as the design documentation. So yeah, certainly we're seeing an evolution, and I think having a very good basis and grounding in BIM is allowing for these innovations to be over the top, right? And then you mentioned AR, VR, and the current sort of trend topic at the moment in the region is digital twins. Mo mentioned it. There isn't a single asset owner that's speaking to us at the moment that isn't mentioning what we could do with digital twins. So either they've got digital assets themselves, so they're quite mature with BIM and their projects have got all BIM models, or they're looking at digitizing their assets, utilizing some of the reality capture techniques that Tamer spoke about. And I think that's a very big growing trend that's happening in the region. And again, the basis for all of this is strong BIM standards.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Prakash. Any comment, Tamer and Mo, about this?
For me, I would like to end this presentation with highlighting that the BIM is very important, and it's not a rocket science, because I have attended, even in the beginning of my career, seminars, presentation, etc., that the people are trying to overcomplicate the BIM. I know it's always very hard to get out of your comfort zone trying to learn a new software or implement a new process or methodology. So I just want to encourage everyone in this call to take the step to read about the BIM, to attend different presentation, to start the journey. And even it's not a problem to fail, right, or to have some complications at the beginning, but at the end, the industry will move towards BIM in all dimensions.
That's great. Thank you. A quick comment before we have a couple of questions from the audience. Quick comment about that direction.
No, to be honest, I'm in agreement. I think my question would have been to all the attendees in this phone call. After this meeting, if you see yourself as an agent of change for adoption of BIM, what would you do? This is for something for the audience to think about. And I'm sure between the collective group and what HW have been working on, there's enough literature to guide people forward.
Excellent. Good question. Hopefully we can hear someone from the audience responding. I have two quick questions from the audience. One from Richard Morales. With all available software tools for BIM, what's the state of interoperability? Also, are the skills required in one software transferable to another? Who wants to take this?
I can take it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think interoperability has been a big problem since the emergence of BIM, and I think it's getting better, but it's nowhere near solved. And the newer softwares that are coming out have taken a different approach to interoperability and having open APIs and things like that. There's a realization that if they're going to close themselves off, they're eventually going to make themselves obsolete as newer things come. But if they become part of an integrated ecosystem, then it's more difficult for them to be dropped away. So if they become integral part of a workflow or integral part of a process in delivering BIM processes and workflows, then it's difficult for them to fall away. And I think there's also a realization that that some of the big software providers aren't the only games in town. I think Tamar mentioned that there's numerous 4D softwares. You only ever hear about the big ones because they've got big marketing budgets and a big sales team and things like that. But actually, if you did a bit of research, and it doesn't take much, you'll find much better tools that are more adaptable, and also because they're small, they're owned by smaller organizations. When you go to them and say, can you make adjustments or change the way this works, they're more likely to incorporate that into the feature set than some of the larger organizations. So yeah, I think interoperability is still an issue. It is getting better, and I think it's going to continue to get better and better and better.
That's a great. Thank you very much, Prakash. One for Mo. I think it's quite open question, Mo. So feel free to to answer it the way you wish. It's about need more information about BIM in asset management.
Do we need, or is there a need?
No. What's basically the role of BIM in asset management? It's an open question from Azhar.
To be honest, I'll talk you through the whole spiel of asset management. So, the basic definition of asset management is that coordinated activity to manage the asset to get the best value out of them. And going back with the old saying, if you didn't know it, you can't manage it, right? So that immediately leads us to what kind of information you're going to get from BIM or anything else to allow you to manage your asset. So for me, when we're talking about asset management, about the productivity that we're talking about, which is synchronizing the work, run all these simulation before you all start. It's about the quality of the information you can get from the contractor regarding your assets. So if we talk to a number of people within the region, or even globally, like it would be really, really challenging to go to any, especially government agency, and say, do you know everything about your assets from A to Z? They would be really, really challenging. And imagine this being the case in the Middle East, right? And if you add to that now I'm inheriting assets that they've been 10, 20 years in operation and maintenance, and all of a sudden I need to maintain them to the best global practice. At the same time, I don't know where the asset is. Like, I don't have basic geospatial information about the asset, or I don't know when the asset was produced, or who the producer or manufacturer, and so forth. So for me, that the benefit of BIM and benefit of best practice comes with the information that you can get with the asset. The more information you can get, but at the same time, I would say the healthy, good information, because sometimes data and information could be noise. And if you can filter out the noise and get the good information that you can create some insight out of, this is what you're really using BIM for. If you use it for a lovely sketch, a 3D model, then it's a 3D model presenting device. So this is how I see it.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, but Mohammed, but I want to answer Richard. I will answer his second part of the question. Are the skills required in one software transferable to another? 100%. And this is what I meant by telling that we need to understand the concept, for example, of the 4D. So if you understand the concept that the 4D is just about linking the task from the schedule with the corresponding end of the 3D model, that's it. So understand the concept. So you don't end up being a software engineer, you're being a 4D engineer. And this is what we want to achieve. It's very important right now in the digital transformation era that we're living to learn multiple softwares. For example, for me as a 4D, I'm using maybe for some presentation, for some project, 3 different 4D softwares for the same project.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tamer. My question to Judy and Anas, really, we're receiving lots of questions now. Should we wrap up or take those questions? Are you okay? What do you think?
We have 3 minutes to close, but if maybe we'd do 1 minute to wrap up. So we maybe have a question. 1 minute for another question, if that's okay.
Okay, there are 3 of them. I think I will just select one here. Yeah, select one here. Is from Bharat Deep. He's saying BIM is more related to productivity during the design phase. In comparison, VDC is more about productivity during the execution phase. ISO 19650 is a standard for BIM for the design phase. I don't think, let me respond to this, but I don't think it's accurate, Bharat. ISO is not for design phase. It's for the whole life cycle. It's for design, construction, and also up to handover. It's a process standard. So it's not, I mean, maybe your comment there, you would need to read more about the ISO. There is a question from Ahmed about integration BIM FM. Again, this is like quick one for more. And then we wrap up. Sorry, guys, if you have a question, you can maybe after the event.
Sorry, I can't see the question on top of my screen. That's the problem. If you don't mind reading it for me.
Any software for, basically it's about how to integrate BIM FM.
Yeah, no, to be honest, I don't have a specific advice on which software to use and which software to be good. Typically, my advices will always be, what do you want to use it for? And after identifying what you're trying to use it for, then go through the exercise of filtering which software exists in the market, which software meets your requirement, where you're heading with your asset information management as a whole. Are you trying to have a digital twin in the future, or you just like would be happy to have a simple Excel file tells you where things are in your facility, right? Have that conversation within your organization. That will identify what kind of decision you're trying to make. That identify what kind of softwares you could reach out to, and then you're funneling the process. And instead of you just, well, I heard the consultant tell me that X is better than Y. I think understanding the fundamental of why did you choose X over Y is more important than what is the actual software at the end.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mo. I think we need to wrap up, and just a quick comment, really not a summary, but I think the common denominator between all our experts is that really BIM is about de-risking, about better decision making. It's about and through those 2 capabilities, really we make decision right time first, and we will be able to get better value of money or better productivity for our labor, equipment, get better O&M, and so on. So I would like to thank really Center for Excellence in Smart Construction. Thank Anas and Judy for putting this panel together, for having me, and thank all our panelists, Gary, Prakash, Tamer, and our audience. Thank you very much. Over to you, Anas.
I just want to echo what you said, Mohammed. Thank you very much to everyone. Our next webinar is on the 3 IPs of the construction industry. Again, that's a request from some of the audience, some of the projects that we've been working on. This particular webinar is in association with Al Tamimi in September. So as always, we'll have August as a time off because everyone wants to go away on a summer break. Stay tuned for this one. And again, thank you very much for the discussion points and thank you very much for the questions. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye. See ya.